So how about this then? Episode 6 of the non-league Natter. And I'm excited because we are, instead of a coach, player, this time we've got a novelist. That is, of course, Johnnie Lowery, and he's written some great books, and we'll be delving into his book, Amateur Hour, which, of course, is at the time, football during lockdown with the FA Vase, which I think is an unbelievable story, and does take you back to unprecedented times 4 years ago. I can't believe it was 4 years ago, lockdown and football, that's for sure. I say, thanks for coming on, mate. When you sent me that message a few weeks ago, which episode did you watch then? Could you remember which one?
I'm not sure that I'd actually watched anything. I just see stuff on Twitter. That's where I pick my stuff up from.
Yeah.
So that is, if you put anything non-league into Twitter, your name is one of the first that comes up. That's it. So that's that's where I got it from. I think that's how I tend to do my sort of non-league circuit, short and sharp, and just see what pops up.
It's crazy though. I appreciate you reaching out to me because, like I said, I've been trying to grow this sort of series. So I mean, we're probably six episodes down, which I think is which is quite incredible, really. But I think for you, I think you've got quite a unique story of how you got into non-league. Of course, we'll get into the old team, sort of United, a bit later on. But what inspired you then to kind of wanting to write books then, especially the book Amateur Hour?
Yeah, so like I've had some pretty crazy times with Sutton. Like I started supporting us. Well, I had my first season ticket when I was I think I was 12 years old. And we were playing in the Conference South in front of crowds of 500 people, which was fine. We sort of plodded along for a bit, and then we had these crazy times in the FA Cup. We built up. We in 2011-12, we got to the second round, which was the first time we'd got there in my lifetime anyway. Sort of threatened to push on, and then we won the Conference South in 2016. It was had the cup run of 2016-17 where we got to the fifth round proper, the last 16, which was just like what are we doing here? Played against Arsenal in the round of 16, which was just so surreal. I, as a kid, when you're at primary school and everyone supports, I went to school in South London, so everyone supported like Chelsea, Arsenal, Man United, one of the three, because they were the three best teams at the time, and Arsenal were the team that I sort of like lined myself up to. Well, I went to a couple of games at Highbury, but never became like a true passion until I started going to watch Sutton. So for us to play Arsenal, who I kind of supported as a kid, was mad. Really, really surreal. And I was behind the scenes at the time. I was doing a bit of stuff. I worked on the car park, which doesn't sound like much, but you got to meet everyone coming in. So it was pretty hectic the day of the Arsenal game, you can probably imagine. I remember forming like part of the human cordon to get like Arsene Wenger through. So there's a lot of stories from it. I knew all the directors at the club. I knew all the players. I knew everyone behind the scenes. I had these kind of inside stories that most people wouldn't have. And all my mates were just sort of saying, "Oh, you should write this down. Like, this is quite a good story. Like, you've had some good times." Literally just for them to read. Like, it was never gonna get published. That was never the idea. Initially, it was just like a kind of something to do. Like, I went to university at Warwick. And at Warwick, I don't know if it's probably the same at most unis, but we finished our exams like really early, like probably early June, and then we still had the accommodation until like the end of July. So for like 2 months, I had basically nothing to do. So I was like, yeah, I'll just do it. Put all those, sort of memories down on paper, if you like. Then from there, thought I'd try and get it published. It got picked up by a local company, but it became like a, I think bestseller is a bit of a stretch, but it did really well at Sutton. Like, a lot of Sutton fans got behind it. The club's always been really good to me, and the people have always been really good to me. So it sold really well. And from there, I just got the bug for it. So Amateur Hour was book number 4. Which is, it's all happened very quickly because I didn't, 600 Minutes was in 2019. So book number 4, it was a lockdown project. Again, it's a common theme here. There wasn't a lot else to do. And I was like, I'm going to try and get out, distract myself a bit. Like I love the FA Vase as a competition. I'm sure we can talk about that a little bit. I just the idea that you have ninth tier like amateur teams essentially getting a chance to play at Wembley, I just find quite a romantic concept. So I'd always wanted to write about a road to Wembley in the FA Vase. A lot of people do it for the FA Cup, which is great, but the FA Vase is like a little bit different, a little bit more niche, underground. The non-league side of it I find really interesting. And then when lockdown came about, I was like, well, I'm not going to miss any Sutton games because you couldn't go. Yeah, why not do it now? Why not? Because you could, it was elite and non-elite with lockdown rules. So you could go and watch the lower leagues, but you couldn't. Somehow Sutton were counted as elite. I don't know who came up with that, but so like you couldn't go and watch Sutton, but you could go and watch the ninth tier. So I thought, yeah, like I'll do my road to Wembley this season, and I'll write it up. And it's a little bit, it's unique. It's a road to Wembley that fingers crossed we won't ever have to do again.
It was so surreal. I think when I was sort of doing my research, doing my background on yourself, and reading the book, a bit about the book as well, which I found really fascinating with a lot of the clubs that you went to. And I went to around the time I was doing my masters at Staffordshire Uni, so I was based in Wolverhampton, and I still found it very surreal looking back on that. I mean, 5 years ago now. And you could have crowds of no more than 600, and you'd have to do, if you wanted a beer, you'd have to sit at a table and all the table service, and that kind of thing, the social distancing and etc. etc. When you kind of reflect back on that lockdown football, I mean, to be fair, non-league, I think, and we'll talk about the rise of non-league thing from COVID.
Yeah.
Do you feel like thinking about it now is still a surreal time looking back 5 years ago?
100%. I wrote Amateur Hour, like at the time it was like a lockdown diary. So I would go to the game pretty much the next day. I'd write up the chapter basically. So and then it just sat on it, never got it published because I was working on my mental health in football book Match Fit, which was like the priority. That came out, and then I thought I'll go back to my backlog and see what I've got. So I've only just myself looked back on all this stuff. So wrote it years ago, dropped it, came back to it, and some of the rules that were there completely forgotten about. There was like a tier system. It's the one game that I remember really vividly is when we had it was like tier 1 to 3, I think.
Yeah.
And then in December 2020, I went up to Malvern Town. All this happened within a day. So I went up to Malvern Town in the morning. Just wanted to get out, go and watch it. It's a lovely place, Malvern, like very scenic. You've got the hills there. They're a really good football club as well, like doing good things, and they've come a long way since the book, actually. So I went to watch Malvern. It was a great game. It was a 5-5 draw, and they won on penalties against Sporting Cowser from the league above as well. So it was a bit of a shock. But within the last 5 or 6 hours, there'd been like a government announcement saying, "Oh, we're reviewing there's been a spike in cases. I think it might have been a new variant, something like that." But they were reviewing the rules, and then by the time the full-time whistle had gone at 5 o'clock, bearing in mind I'd probably set off at 8 in the morning, so it's not even 12 hours. They turned around and said, we're creating a tier 4 where you basically can't even go out of the house, and we're putting London in it from tomorrow. So I got the train back from Malvern, so near Worcestershire way, back into London. It's like hardly anyone on the train. Got into wherever it was, Paddington, say, and it was like a horror film. There was thousands of people trying to get out of London, like a post-apocalyptic thing. Sorry. Yeah. Just everyone trying to get out because it was so. It was like the week before Christmas as well, and everyone was trying to get to be somewhere at Christmas if they had family or friends where they could have some sort of like life. It was a last chance legally anyway. You could go and stay with your family before Christmas, and it was really, really strange time. And at that point, it was like, well, are they even going to finish the FA Vase now? Because like no one's going to be able to go and watch the games. Like I don't think they had a vaccine at that point, so there was no real way out. And it just felt like, oh God, what am I going to do for the next? And there was no timeline. It wasn't like, what am I going to do for the next month? It was like, what am I going to do until they fix this? Which could have been, honestly, like, it sounds pessimistic. I am a pessimistic person, but I was sat there thinking this could go on forever. There could be new variants and more deadly or more contagious, and they're never quite on top of it. And we could be sat. I might never go and watch Sutton United again. It was that sort of darkness, really. And then within a year or so, we were kind of out of it, thank God. But yeah, looking back, it's interesting. I wouldn't say like it's. I think it's a sort of look back and be grateful for what we've got. That's the sort of vibe that it comes out as. That's not the vibe I was going for when I wrote it, because like I said, I wrote it at the time, and I think it does quite authentically capture what the situation was and what I was feeling. So it's an interesting window back into that time. But yeah, I think the appeal now, and the reason that Pitch decided to publish it, is it's difficult to remember it. I think we sort of airbrushed it out, but it does make you. I think you never take football for granted again. Having read Amateur Hour, is how I would describe it.
Yeah, I'm the same. Like, I remember it was weird looking back on that time, because even from 2020, I think my last game, I was living up in Liverpool at the time, and my last game was Vauxhall Motors back in March. And I don't think I saw another game, I think, until about end of July, when I went up to One Mile Main. And then I didn't see another game until the September when I was at AFC Withunians. But I still look back, and I've watched the videos back, and it just feels strange just thinking about it. I did see a couple of the, if I remember off the top of my head, I think, did I do some of the Vase games? I don't think I did, but I remember going to one of the FA Trophy games, and it was Tamworth were playing Banbury. And it was when I think they were just about introducing the tier system, or they were going to send us back into lockdown. And it was around the time of the Six Nations, and there was like, word got out, I think it must be that second half, word got out that there was going to be an announcement, just like what you were saying. And you could feel like the air had just been like taken out of the football ground.
Yeah.
And Tamworth had beaten Banbury, and it was like no one had cared. And that shouldn't have felt like that at all. But you're right. For me, I mean, I've read some of the chapters. It is fascinating. I mean, Durham City, which was the first game you did, what was the thought then of going to Durham then? Because like you mentioned your granddad in there as well.
Yeah.
But what was the first? Why Durham then for the road to Wembley?
Yeah, so Durham, I've got, like, say, family up, or had family up in the Middlesbrough area. So I was up there visiting. I went up quite a lot. He was quite ill at the time, so I was up visiting my granddad quite a lot. It was the first whatever the first qualifying round was, or and Durham were it was literally just they were on a Friday night. And again, it's like, it's one of those where so you couldn't, I don't know whether you could go to the pubs or not. There was basically, again, like, not a lot to do. Been up, seen my granddad, been with him all day, which was like great seeing him again. I was up there for the weekend as well, and it was like, Friday evening. Usually I'd be at the pub with my mates, whatever. Obviously not going to do that. I didn't really know anyone else in the North East anyway. Lived in London all my life, and it was on. I thought, well, I might as well. It was an escape, right? It was a kind of like a break from life. Like, my granddad was ill. It's great seeing him, and and you kind of feel like in any situation where you're with lockdown and with my granddad's health, it's just nice to have a little break from the real world. That's what it is. That's what football is always to me. I'm not thinking about anything else when I'm at the football, when I'm playing football. Watching it, it's literally just like in my own little world for a few hours, and that's kind of why I started doing the whole Amateur Hour thing. I went to that first game, and then I was like, oh, I'll do the rest. I'll do the road to Wembley now. But yeah, Durham, they were playing in Willington, which wasn't too difficult to get to. It's quite like a historic old ground as well, Willington. It had been there for a while, and I thought that would be quite a nice place to visit. I would have gone and watched any team, to be honest with you. I think that it was an interesting story what was going on with Durham at the time. They had I think it was Olivier Bernard was the owner. Didier Agath was definitely the manager. And I don't think they had a single English player in the team. They'd got all these young lads from Europe and all over the world to play for them, and they were crap. I mean, they lost, I think, every single league game for 2 years.
Yeah.
Like they didn't pick up a single point, or maybe 1 or 2 points, and they got relegated 2 or 3 divisions. By the time, I mean, they pretty much disappeared. I know they're still going as a club, but they've dropped out of the Northern League, definitely. It was very strange, but that wasn't why I went. I would have gone to watch any football, like whatever was on. And then I went to Whitley Bay the next day as well. Again, like it's something different. Whitley Bay have their own history, being one of the most successful, possibly the most successful team in the FA Vase. Still, they won it like 3 years in a row, didn't they? But they weren't great either when I went to watch them play. But yeah, so it was a convenience thing. Like I was in the north that weekend, and I wanted to go and watch a game of football. Durham were there, and it just so happened that got a couple of interesting contests. But wherever you look in non-league football, there's interesting stuff. I think it's always there, and it was nice to be able to write about it.
Yeah, it was great, and like I say, look at some of the teams that you did as well. And when you look back on that run that you did, what was for you the best ground that you did in that road to Wembley?
Oh, that's a good question. The best ground. Well, if I'm being biased, I did a game at Sutton United's ground because Sutton Common were playing there. So that for me is obviously a special place. And it's a ground that's hosted Football League. But that would be too easy an answer. So I'm not going to say that. And we're not counting Wembley here either. I would, the best ground, I'm trying to think where I went. Willington's was genuinely probably the one with the most sort of history. You could see where the old terracing used to be. It used to be a lot bigger than it is now. I did Whitley Bay, which again, like big club. A few smaller clubs in there. Malvern was really scenic. I really liked that. A couple of the games I didn't even get in the ground. I had to watch over the fence. So the semis and the quarters, I didn't even get in the ground. Yeah, I think if I had to pick one, it would have been the first one. Yeah, for the actual. So a shout out to Hadley as well, was running Malvern close for the most scenic. I mean, there'd been a little windmill behind the ground. It's quite a unique setting. Yeah, like the history in Willington's ground was really interesting, and it's kind of particularly so when you see how far down they are now. I mean, there's a lot of I think the Northern League, even going back to when I first started watching non-league football 10, 15 years ago, was a lot more, I think, powerful than it is now. I think that balance of power has kind of shifted away from when they made it compulsory to take promotion if you won the league, which is a whole other topic of discussion. But yeah, it's interesting how things change in a relatively short period of time.
100%. And I think I do need to go and see Durham. There's quite a lot of teams, not North East, I still need to there's a lot in the Northern League I still need to do. I have done quite a lot of the big teams up in that North East.
I don't know where they're playing now, Durham, because there's a Durham. I saw, so you scroll through the non-league allocations, whatever it's called, and there's a Durham. I don't know, Durham United, Durham something else that are in the Northern League as of next season, and it's not City. Durham City is still down below it, so there's a new club in Durham, or a replacement for the for City, but I don't know where hopefully they're managing to play in and around Durham itself, because it was a fair way from the actual city of Durham, but yeah.
I remember I remember there, I think the old owner, from what I got told, used to run the socials, and I remember them. Well, one of them. Well, I think it was on the Instagram or the Twitter page, was having a go at my mate Dan Bell. You might have come across Dan Bell many times, because he does a lot of the North East stuff. Does some great stuff for that, and they were going back and forward. And I think he got to a point where they ended up having to create new social media channels because of the old owner. I don't know whether, and they can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know if they reformed or they did something where they ended up changing owner, and they've gone back to what they are, but I think they are still. I think they are rebuilding the club after all the all the stuff that went on. But
yeah, I mean, they've got a long way to go. I mean, the epilogue of the book, it was most of the teams in it because they were towards the end, they were the better teams, so that a lot of them had got better. And there's a couple of paragraphs on Durham just to explain just how much they'd like cocked things up since then. I mean, it was like that bad. I don't think you could have done any worse if you tried. So I imagine they got a long way back. And again, like historic club, would have been playing in the Conference North probably if it wasn't for the fact they weren't allowed the pitch in then, which obviously, say 10 years down the line now, and it wouldn't have been a problem. So funny how circumstances like that, sliding doors moment, if you like, can affect the club. And hopefully, I think they are still going. I'd say I don't know where or what league or anything, but I imagine it's a long road back to where they were 10 years ago.
Well, if people are watching and someone's putting the comments down below, then they can, to be fair. But so we've gone through any best ground. You've talked about the scenic ground, the most scenic ground you did in the run. But what was the most unique ground that out of all the grounds you did?
Unique. I'd say Hadley's was with the windmill. It was so Hadley, it's like kind of near Barnet, for those that don't know. It's a lovely area. Really sort of like I would say £1 million houses. It was how I describe it. It's like because you're in London and you get the bus from whether we were Barnet or Edgware, and you go from built up London to it feeling quite rural almost. And you sort of down a little track, you'd barely be able to find it. And it's like, yeah, a lovely little setup. Funnily enough, I think it's the chairman now, but he was the brother of Sutton United's manager at the time, and I had no idea. I phoned up the club. I was chatting about football and saying, "Oh, I've watched a bit of Sutton play," and the guy on the other end of the phone was going, "Oh, I watch a bit of Sutton as well." And I'm thinking, well, is this guy from North London watching Sutton? And yeah, it was the manager's brother. So I was actually, I've had that conversation and chatted about it with Matt Gray, who was the Sutton manager at the time, and he's telling me all about the setup. They were playing various places. They've basically built it by hand and it's a good venue. They're in the 8th tier now, in the Southern Div 1. But yeah, it's maintained that character. It's not one of those identikit stadiums or with identikit stands. It's got all of the sort of niche of a lower league team, but all the functionality that you would need. And they pushed. I think they're in the playoffs this year, so they're pushing to go up again. And granted, they would have had to do a bit to the ground if they had gone up. But even if they do, I'm sure they can do it in a way that maintains its character. It's well worth a visit. I really, really liked it. I thought it was a memorable place to visit. It wasn't just a standard, and in the summer as well, which it was. It was like, yeah, it was lovely. So that would 100% recommend it.
Well, I'll put that on my list for future grounds I need to go and visit at some point. Yeah, I've got too many grounds I need to go and visit at some point. But I was at finals day last month, and I've been going to it for the last few years now, and realizing how amazing it is. I mean, how many non-league finals days have you done then since you've been following non-league then for the last 10 years?
I've done quite a few, but mostly I think that was the last one that I did in 21. I haven't done the last couple of years. I think I've been abroad for a couple of them. I didn't have an excuse this year. I've just been busy, which is bad because I keep going on about how good they are for the money you pay. I mean, I used to get tickets through Sutton United, so I went to one I remember is when South Shields won it. I think 4-0 in the final against Cleethorpes off the top of my head. And we were sat in the padded seats right on the halfway line. We paid 20 quid for it. It's great. You always get, without fail, a good game. It's always entertaining. I don't think I can remember a bad game especially the Vase, but the trophy as well. There is that, like I say, that romantic notion of lower league team gets a big day out at Wembley. I'd love to see Sutton in the trophy final one day. We should have got there this year, or at least got a lot closer. We just completely didn't turn up in the quarter final. So yeah, like I love it. I need to get back to doing it. And I've got a long list of mates that'll go with me every time that aren't even into non-league football in general. They'll just go because it's cheap tickets, it's Wembley. The football is entertaining. It's like a good enough quality that you don't really care about the standard, so long as it's a good game. They're always good teams. By the time you've got through however many hundred teams in it, you're left with two decent sides at the end of it. So I've done quite a few. Probably between 2015 and lockdown, I was every year, and then since 21, I don't think I've been back. So I do need to get on that for next year, definitely.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I think the first time I went would have been, 2019. I think I went to the FA Trophy final when Leyton Orient played Fylde. I think it was, because I think Fylde were denied. Yeah, it was because Fylde were denied the playoff win by Salford then when they got to the Football League, and then Fylde. I remember I went to the semi-final where Danny Rose scored the winner against Stockport, and that's when Stockport were in National League North then, which is crazy to think about now, given that they were on the cusp of the Championship. But for me, I think it's great. I mean, I paid £30 for non-league finals day, which is cheap. I mean, I'm talking about non-league coming out of lockdown. What growth have you seen from the 5 years to now? Just the amount of people have gone, you know what, forget the Premier League and all that. Non-league seems to be the way to go now, isn't it?
Yeah, I actually think part of it is people feeling grateful because of lockdown that they're able to go and see live football. Like it's there, take advantage of it, make the most of it. I think it was on an upward trajectory before lockdown anyway, and it's just continued on the same path. Like it's exactly what you say. It's people getting fed up with the Premier League, the money in it, the lack of consideration for any clubs other than themselves amongst the top six, probably the whole league realistically. Like I know Sutton, we were averaging the year before we won. So we won the league in lockdown. The year before that, we were averaging probably just short of 2,000, 1,1800, maybe not even that. Now we've gone up and come back down again. And we weren't great this season either, to be honest, with mid-table. And we're still averaging 2,500. So we've put like 1,000 on our average attendance, despite having won 5 home games in the last 2 years. So something's doing it right in non-league football. I think like people, there's a lot of Chelsea fans come to Sutton, a lot of Palace fans, a lot of Arsenal fans, etc. Being a London club, where you'll chat to people and they'll say, "Well, I can't afford to take my kids to go and see Chelsea. If they all got season tickets, it's costing them like 4 or 5 grand. Whereas at Sutton, you could do it within easily with a grand for 4 people and have money to spare for your drinks, your food, etc. It's local. People live walking distance, turn up 10 minutes before kickoff, get home 10 minutes after full time. It's just my dad always said it was quite civilized non-league football. There was no hassle with trying to get on a tube or like you're waiting for like the 5th train because you're queuing at the station and everything. It was just you turned up, you watched a game, you didn't pay too much money, you get to stand where you want. You feel part of it because it's your town, it's your team. Like I used to know all the players at Sutton, and it's not quite like that now in the top end of the National League. But you go down a couple of tiers, and it's still, I imagine, very much the same. It's a community thing. You actually if you weren't there one week, people would be like, "Where's Johnny? What's he doing?" Whereas if I had an Arsenal season ticket and I didn't go one week, be people moaning that it was his best seat. Do you know what I mean? So it's a completely different atmosphere, I think. I think more people want to feel part of their football now, and I mean, it's important that clubs aren't complacent because it's not going to happen automatically. But I think as a trend, it should keep growing. I think more and more people. You look at like Jim Ratcliffe at Man United, for example, and the way it's sort of every penny they can cut and they're off on tour to Malaysia or wherever it is today, and it's just going to piss people off, obviously. And if you're feeling like that, then vote with your feet. Go and watch your local team. You might just fall in love with it. It might be something you do a few times a year, and it's like a nice sort of thing to have on your doorstep. It might be that you end up like me with a season ticket going home and away. And however it goes, it's a fantastic thing to be a part of.
Oh, it certainly is. And yeah, I agree with you 100%. I'm going to play devil's advocate, but do you feel like the National League, as much as I love the National League, and I really do, is there a sense where it could get, because it feels like to me with the National League, it's becoming kind of like League 5, where it's becoming very similar to League 2. And do you feel like very soon we could, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about sort of 3 up, 3 down, but could you see the National League being more so sort of disconnected away from the North and the South and becoming a little bit too much like the EFL?
I think you're right. It pretty much is just another. It's just another professional division. But half the clubs in the North and South are now. Like it's the standard of the money going for wage bills for players is higher probably than it's ever been. You've got a mix of things. You've got teams dropping down, like bigger clubs dropping down. Some of them are starting to find their way back, and you've got an Oldham South End playoff final, so one of them's going back up there. And then you've got teams starting to come up that haven't always been around. So I say like obviously Salford are one of them. Go back 20 years and you're sort of like your Fleetwoods, your Morecambes, your Crawleys. You can count the bracket Forest Green. Well, Forest Green were, to be fair, but they've gone higher than they were before. Now you've got teams starting to come up like Farnham or Dorking. All it does is it's just more and more competitive every year filed. So it's tougher for the sort of older historic clubs, the established clubs, if you like, to compete. And the bar just gets higher and higher and higher with the money. So that when Sutton won the National League in 2021, we weren't even a full-time professional team. We were a part-time side. That will never happen again. I'll go on record and very confidently say that we will never have a part-time team winning the National League again. That'll be the last ever time. Because there's barely even any part-time teams in it. In fact, I'm not sure if now Maidenhead have gone down. I'm not sure there are any. So I think every team is. There might be one or two, but I don't think there's a single. Certainly, maybe Brackley are they full-time pro part-time, but
I think they are, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's everyone. So there's not even any part-time teams in it. So yeah, it kind of is. It's similar to the Football League. It should be 3 up, 3 down. Realistically, no team has ever got promoted and come straight back down again. Even teams like Macclesfield that have been in a lot of trouble financially have managed to do it. I think the top half of the National League and the bottom half of League 2 are basically the same. I mean, I really don't think there's much difference between it in terms of the size of the clubs or the ability at all. So it should be 3 up, 3 down. I don't think it's a bad thing for the National League to become like League 2. Like League 2 wasn't wildly different, having seen Sutton in it. It's quite nice to be boosting our crowds. It maintained. It comes down to the club, right? Sutton's changed a bit because we had to take more money on from external investors to pay for the ground development, so we wouldn't have been able to afford it. But it has still got that community feel. Like I could text the CEO of the club now, and if I had a question, because he makes sure he speaks to the supporters. He'll like, yeah, if you have a question, the people like behind the scenes are available. We had a testimonial for one of our legends yesterday, Craig Dundas, and people were in. I mean, I left at the game finished at 4, so I left the bar at 8:30 because I live quite a long way away and I live in central London. And there were still people. I was getting sent videos. People still there at 1 a.m. It's just like, and it's all like the former players, the former managers. All of like the sort of the hardcore fans that have been around there for years, and it's like a family. And chatting to people, and they say, "Yeah, I love this place, I love this club," all that sort of conversation. Sutton never lost that when it went into the Football League, and there's no reason why any other club would have to lose that if the National League is effectively League 3, part of the Football League. It's a name, right? It's the actual football and the club and the community side of it doesn't have to change, I think. So, yeah, it's definitely moving that way. But I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily at all.
I was going to say, just on that, I remember when Sutton won the league, and of course it was behind closed doors. Did that hurt a lot, the fact that the fans couldn't be there to celebrate what was a very historic,
Yeah, the fans were back in for the day we won it, which was nice. It was a really nice sort of concluding chapter. We had 1,000 people in, which was basically the season ticket holders. So everyone got to see that at least. I was actually there for most of the games as because I was in the car park, and I was they had me doubling up on jobs, so I'd car park before the game, and then I'd be the ball boy. You had to basically like they held all the different balls on cones around the pitch, because if a ball went in the other area, it was like red and yellow and green zones. So if the ball went out, it had to be like disinfected. It was crazy. But so I was in to watch the games. Obviously, it's very different. With there being no one there, I basically felt like I was one of the backroom staff. Like, it was weird. I wasn't actually doing anything, like, or contributing to the team, I should say. But yeah, it was surreal. But so like I got to see it in person. There was the whole thing about whether we would have won it if fans are in, because there were clubs that we were in a title race with that might have been considered a fortress, playing like Notts County, playing in front of however many 7,000-8,000 people every week. We'd have been getting 2,000-3,000. We'll never know what the reality is. I still think we were the best team. Which isn't a particularly controversial thing to say. Over 46 games, the best team tends to win the league. So we'll never know. Yeah, it was strange. It made slightly easier for me by being there as the ball boy, and the fact that fans were in for the day we won the league, but like not really. It still wasn't. I'd have liked to have been on the terraces. I was still a ball boy for the day we won the league, and I'd have given anything to be on the other side of the pitch like Barry and been on the terrace, but that was my job. I had to do it, and I'm certainly not complaining at all. So yeah, like, listen, I still think it's the most special memories that everyone who was there will treasure for the rest of their lives, because we were at least in for the for the day we won it. And then we had 3 years in the Football League. I think teams like Wickham, I always feel sorry for Wickham, because they went up and then their championship season was in lockdown. So the fans, Wickham supporters, would never have got the chance to see them in the championship, whereas in person anyway. Whereas we had our 3 years. We got to Wembley in the Football League. We've been spoiled over the last few years until last season and this season. So yeah, not ideal, obviously, but still special memories. None of the circumstances or whatever would take that away from us ever.
Because I remember, I think it was after, because I'm a Donny fan, of course, and our first game, might have been 21, 22. We played, I think you were our first home game, and we had Gary McSheffrey then as manager. Well, it might have been 22, 23, and I think we won 2-1.
Yeah, don't remember. We were 1-0 up in the 92nd minute. Terrible.
Yeah, and like I remember people were like, because a lot of my friends, I never went to the away game, and I wish I did, because I would like to touch your ground off, and I still can, I still will do. But I feel like with Sutton had really, for me, kind of punched above the weight a lot of the time, because I think a lot of the time you do get clubs that come up and they do fairly well in the first season, because everyone, everyone's always new, and it's like Barrow. Barrow are probably a club that I consider very similar to Sutton, where they've come up and they have established themselves. They've done pretty well, but I feel like League Two is probably their glass ceiling. Did you ever think that League Two was going to be your glass ceiling? Do you ever think that you could have got into League One at some point?
If we were going to do it, it would have been in our first season, and we would have got in the play. We had the highest points tally of a team that's not got in the playoffs. We got 76 points and finished on, I think, outside on goal difference or something. It came to the final day, and if we'd won, and we needed like one of 3 teams to drop points, we would have got in the playoffs, and all 3 of them won. And I think 2 of them were playing the top 2 in the league. It was just like, what are the odds? But yeah, so I think if we were ever going to do it, it would have been a smash and grab like that. I think as a club, League Two was as a club, probably the National League was our ceiling. We sort of got promoted by accident a little bit. We had like a 3G pitch, which that cost us a fortune to tear that up. The ground was nowhere near good enough, and if we went back up, we'd have to do more developments. We sort of got it halfway. You get 3 years grace period, and because we'd got relegated within 3 years, we didn't actually have to hit the end criteria in the end. I think it's 2,000 seats, and we're still short of that now. But Yeah, but with Sutton, and I think Bromley will see the same opportunity now. As a London club, you've got almost unlimited potential to expand. There's just so many people around that you can build up to. That there almost isn't like with Barrow. There, it's if you're going to watch Barrow, you're living in Barrow realistically. Whereas Sutton, we could attract people from all across South London if we were doing well enough. So yeah, you never know. I mean, at the minute, it's kind of more like survive, see where the next paycheck's coming from, try and settle down again at the level we're at, and then maybe look at pushing for promotion in a couple of years. I think I'm quite pessimistic, but that's probably the reality. But if we did get back up, then I'm sure the ambition will always be looking higher. I don't think we'll ever, as a club, think, okay, well, we'll just settle here and not push on. I think everyone thought that for a club like Sutton, that they would never get beyond the National League. It was a part-time team. It was essentially fan-owned, community-run, 3G pitch. And once we'd broken that glass ceiling to League Two, then I think if you can get past that barrier, you can do anything. Yeah, it didn't work out for us in the end, but we may well be back, and other clubs now will see the opportunity. Now that we've done it, and to be fair, Harrogate did it before us with a bit more financial backing than we had. But I think we probably set the path for Bromley again, though they spent more than we did to get there, certainly by a long way. Other clubs will see that chance, especially now down to 7th in the playoffs, and if it goes 3 up, 3 down, then it's even more so. Like it can always be done. I think it's what we did is it went under the radar a bit. I think it should have got more coverage. I would say that, but it was one for the dreamers. It's like, yeah, if we can do it, then like go for it. Who knows, like what might happen for any non-league football club. When we were in the Ryman League in front of less than 500 people in my lifetime when I first started watching us. So, and then we were playing in League Two, like beating Wimbledon in our own backyard in front of a sellout crowd. Like it changed so much, and any team can look at that and think the same thing, I think.
100%. I was about to say, and you beat me to it. I was going to say Harrogate was one of them because I remember Harrogate played, I think, something like the first 5 games when they were ripping their pitch up. They had to play at Donny because it was the same sort of level. I think we were in League Two then at the time. But like, just going back then to your run to Wembley, then because you did the final, of course, which of course Warrington Rams won, and of course now they've done very well in the Northern Premier League. And do you remember that final vividly as well? And what sort of memories do you remember from that final? Because it was a 5-goal thriller, wasn't it?
Yeah, you know what? I'll be very honest. My main memory from that final is it was the day before Sutton played Hartlepool, which ended up being the day we won the league. But we so Torquay were our title rivals, and they were playing. It was on a Saturday, and Torquay were playing against Barnet, who were bottom of the league. And I didn't want to know the score because I thought it was going to ruin my day, so I turned off my phone. And I just watched again. It was a great game. It's 3-2. Rylands had 2 players that ended up playing in the Football League the next year, so they were a very good side. And Binfield gave them a run. So they're always good games. But I was just so distracted. I watched it. I enjoyed it. I was thinking, like, in a few hours' time, I'm going to need to know the score of the game. Torquay were 3 points behind us with a goal difference. That was maybe 5 or 6 worse. So if they'd battered Barnet like 7-0, and bearing in mind Barnet were bottom of the league and were terrible that year, which so they could have done, then we would have actually dropped to 2nd if we'd lost against Hartlepool, who I think were 3rd. So they were a good side. So I watched the 2nd game, which was Hereford-Hornchurch, where Hereford were 7th tier team at the time. Hornchurch were 7th tier time and beat Hereford, who were in the north. So like that again, massive shock, really good game. Was really happy for Hornchurch. Like it's obviously not far from Wembley. It's not far from where I live now in East London. And then I got that game finished, so I'm like, right, I've got to check the score of this game now. Turned my phone on, and Barnet had come from 2-0 down to draw with Torquay, and it was only that which meant that we could then win the league against Hartlepool, because a win would have put us like 5 points clear with a game to go. So it just made it. I remember just seeing that score and just thinking, oh my god, like this could actually. So I never believed it until it would happen. Until it did happen, sorry. yeah, just incredible. Like seeing that and just thinking, like tomorrow's going to be a bit stressful. Didn't sleep. I didn't eat anything from then to after the game. I don't think it was just such a stressful but wonderful time. So yeah, that was my memory of the FA Vase final. Thinking, what's the Torquay Barnett score?
Yeah, because I think was it Torquay went to playoff final, and I think the goalkeeper scored. Was it?
It was against Hartlepool, and then Hartlepool won on penalties in the end.
Yeah.
I remember watching that and thinking, thank God we're not in it. Like, it's the most relaxed I've ever been watching a game of football. It was great.
Yeah, because I think as well. I mean, because I remember watching that. I remember watching Hereford against Hornchurch in the final, and I think Hornchurch is the last club from the 7th tier to win the FA Trophy. I think.
Yeah,
I might be wrong, but
that would probably be right. I would have thought without knowing for sure, but I wouldn't have thought that will happen again very often either. It's like, yeah, I mean, it's an incredible achievement. It's just like the season where anything could have happened and did, which was, yeah, a nice way to get through it. Like I say.
yeah, 100%. I remember you. Go back to Sutton then, because and going back to the Arsenal game. Do you remember when, of course, everyone will remember that game for the old Wayne Small pie eating, thing when he managed to get himself in front of the camera? But were you actually in the ground when you saw that?
Yeah, well, no one in the ground knew about it until after. I mean, it wasn't. It was a thing. It was basically a setup by Sunbets, which was it was all a bit dark arts because the Sun set up their betting company, which must have been running for about a month, which was the month of the game. And it was just a massive publicity. So they basically just thought, these guys don't have any media training at all. We'll just exploit them and pay them off and take the piss and benefit ourselves. And that's what happened. And that's why I get annoyed when people remember the game by that, because it was all done at our expense. We were a part-time team still at this point. Like, our players weren't even fully professional. We'd knocked out Leeds United. We knocked out Wimbledon in their own backyard. We have a habit of beating them in their own backyard. We played Arsenal, who were like, they had World Cup winners in that team. And we lost 2-0. We gave them a game. We hit the bar. We had a good chance at 2-0 down to bring it back to 2-1, which we should have scored. And then all the papers the next day were about something not even to do with the game. So it was frustrating. Like, the players deserved a lot more credit. The volunteers that had worked to put the game on and stage it. The fact we even managed to stage the game at Gander Green Lane was impressive because of the whole drama around it. I think something like 200 million people watched it worldwide. The ground holds like 5,000. You can see the sort of, like, the demand was just ridiculous for tickets. The whole town just stopped for that day. So yeah, it's frustrating. That was what it was about. We basically just got taken advantage of by the Sun, which has history, obviously, of doing that. And we shouldn't have jumped into bed with them. We shouldn't have taken their sponsorship money. I think the club sort of acknowledged that and that they'd made a mistake. But like, we'd never dealt with this before. Like, we were a non-league club. We'd never had this sort of publicity. Like, how would the chairman, the board, the manager, how would they know how to deal with it? And it was just rabbit in the headlights. We got caught out. Which was a shame. So I wrote the club's official 125th anniversary book. They asked me to do it for them. So I wrote all of the official history of all this stuff, if you like. And someone from the club was like, "Oh, Johnny, we can't just ignore this. Like, it happened, the Wayne Shaw and the pie thing. We're going to have to put it in." And I was like, "No, we can write. I think the players and the staff and everything deserve to be remembered for what they achieved, rather than being sidetracked by basically us just getting mugged off." So I refused to put it in. I didn't mention it at all. Didn't touch on it. As far as I'm concerned, it didn't happen. And if that's how other people want to remember it, fine. But it's not how I want to remember it. I want to remember a part-time team getting to the last 16 of the FA Cup and being in a draw for the quarter-final, by the way, because we were the Monday night game. So we were watching the FA Cup quarter-final draw, and Sutton United were in it. It was like, wow. So that's how I want to remember it. That's how everyone at Sutton will remember it. And yeah, I understand why people remember the drama that came after it, but it's not something that I'm really interested in anymore. It was what it was, but it didn't take away for me the magnitude of the achievement to get to that stage.
When you published that book, then and obviously people are going to try and they're going to look at the chapter, they're going to look at the game. Did you have any backlash from maybe not so much fans, but like people that kind of, as you say, remember the game, remember for that moment, and have gone, why is that not in there? Did you get any sort of criticism from that?
No, because I think I would have done, but I wrote it. It was for the club, and the club. It wasn't like, I guess, published with a like an independent book publisher. The club just printed it. The club sold it in the club shop. So the only people that would have read it and it would have been Sutton United fans who would have probably agreed with me. And I've never explicitly explained why I've done that until now. People might have just, no one's ever mentioned it to me. People might have read it and thought, oh, he's not mentioned that. I wonder why he's done that. I wonder if he forgot. I wonder if he's done it deliberately. I wonder why he's done it. I was always, and it wasn't like it wasn't like the club told me not to do it. It was the opposite. The club said we should probably mention this like it happened. And it was my decision to be, no, we're not going to do that. I'm not going to do this. So who writes history? The winners. Well, more specifically, it's the writers of the winners. And I decided I don't want to. I don't think it's fair on the people that achieved what they did to be remembered in that way. So I decided not to do it. No one's ever mentioned it to me. No one praised, criticised. I think most people would agree with it, but I never felt the need to justify or explain it. I just thought this, with a Sutton United audience, will sort of justify itself. And if anyone else, if I was writing a book for a book publisher about that game, for example, or anything, and my first book was about the Cup Run as well, and I touched on it in the I think it was either the epilogue or the after note. Something, it wasn't in the book itself. And again, it was the same thing. I think I actually wrote about it then. It was like, it just wasn't like, it was a drama for people that weren't into Sutton United, and a drama for people that weren't even into football. It's like a Coronation Street thing. But if you actually were into the football, it was like this team where the players are paid a couple of hundred quid a week, have just nearly held Arsenal, who are paying Alexis Sanchez 200 grand a week, to a draw. That was the story. Yeah. So no one's ever mentioned it to me, which is, I think, a good thing. I think that the fact that it's not a song and dance about it, it's just that's how I've chosen to do it. And I think that's the best and most important thing to take from that game was the football, and the fact that the club staged the game and got to that stage. And that's what I want to look back on in these history books that I was using as research. The one that did the centenary in 1998, so 25 years time, people are still reading it. And when people read that in 25 years time, I want them to remember the game and not the events surrounding it.
No, definitely. No, I appreciate that. I do appreciate that a lot. And I remember the game vividly. Quite, I do remember the game a little bit, because I've been watching it in and out, because I was at uni then at the time. So I think I must have put my iPad on whilst I was doing my uni work. But I do get what I do agree with you, to be fair. And I always felt like when I go back and watch what that National League highlights when BT were covering it then, and you were always up there or thereabouts, and you had a tremendous, when you came out of the National League South and you came into the National League, you did I think that run was absolutely brilliant. But going to this season then, finishing 12th mid-table, just after being relegated from the Football League, did you feel like this season was just going to be right, this is our first season back in the National League, let's just embed ourselves and see where we go? We don't want to be in a point where we don't want to be fighting relegation.
Yeah, it happens quite a lot, doesn't it, where teams do a double drop. I think York have done it, Scunthorpe have done it. So we were sort of, and bigger clubs than us, to be honest. So I would have probably taken mid-table. We were very, very average. I think we pretty much won, drew, and lost the same amount of games. Our goal difference was around 0. We never really looked like pushing for promotion. We never really looked like going down. We did okay in the cups without ever doing anything special. It was just very, very plodded along. unremarkable. You wouldn't have noticed us if we hadn't got relegated the year before, or if you didn't support us. So, which was fine. Not particularly eye-catching, not particularly exciting, to be honest, but minimum expectation met, I would say. And now it's how can we push on? We're probably one of the bigger clubs in the league now, particularly when you take obviously one of Southend or Oldham out of the equation. So I think if we're going to keep our crowds up towards the 2,500 mark, we've got to be looking at the playoffs. I don't think we're going to win the league. I don't think, say the money's quite tight. We've probably got a mid-table budget. So we probably finished where we were expecting to on budget terms. But I think you've always got to have that ambition. So we've got to be looking up. It'll be a tough league again next year. Obviously, no doubt about it. But yeah, it's been okay. Like the issue has been our home record, which has been poor and was terrible. Obviously, last year we were terrible home and away last year. So if you want to keep your home crowds up, you've got to start winning your home games, and that's probably the main thing we've got to work on for next season and see where we end up. But yeah, hopefully back to the Football League before long. I never thought I'd sit in the Football League in my lifetime until we did. So could be worse. We've been spoiled over the last few years, and it's sort of back down to earth a little bit, especially with Wimbledon winning the playoff final today. It's like back 2 leagues above us now. We'll catch them. give us a few years. They never thought we'd get in the same league as them in the first place, and we did. And with Bromley in the league above us as well. So we're the third best out of the three, and we were the top a couple of years ago. So yeah, it's not as good as it has been, but I've seen us a lot worse than we are now. So perspective, but yeah, hopefully the future will be bright.
Definitely, I think the club, especially the league next season, where personally I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's going to be a lot tougher. I think York City have not got promoted. Forest Green are going to be in there. You've got, if one of the clubs don't go up, Oldham or Southend, you've got them. You've got Rochdale. You've got Gateshead. Teams are coming up. Scunthorpe. You've got Brackley. Truro City. Clubs coming down from the Football League. Carlisle and Walkham, I believe it is. And to be honest, I think the league's going to be. I think it could go one or two ways. I think you could get clubs that you might have 2 or 3 clubs that get 90 plus points, 100 plus points, or it could be very, very open. So I feel like the National League this next season, I think, is going to be exciting. I think you might get a surprise. I think personally.
Yeah, I mean, we might be the surprise based on our budget. I can't see past York and Forest Green, possibly Carlisle, for maybe 3 of the top 4, and then see throws up the surprise. I just think the money that York have and are spending, and the money that Forest Green can spend if Delvins wants to, can just absolutely blow everyone else out the water. I mean, we can't compete with that. We can't compete with York City's money. It's just we're not in the same league as them financially. That's just the reality. And they're a bigger club than us as well, obviously. So, like, whatever, I'm not crying about it. But, yeah, I think from a certain perspective, like, we obviously want to get back in the Football League, having been there, but know that the reality is that in financial terms, which dictates a lot of football, as we all know, we're not spending the amount of money that will make it likely to happen. But it's no guarantee of success, money, and you never know. We've got a very interesting recruitment strategy at the minute. We're just signing players, but mostly young lads from the league below, which seems like a gamble to me. It could work, it might not work. If it doesn't work, we're in a bit of trouble, because it could go very badly wrong, potentially, if you've not got players with experience at this level. But we've retained a lot of the squad from last year, who obviously have at least a year's experience now. There's some good players in there. We'll have to see who we can hold on to. Yeah, a lot of moving parts still for the rest of the summer, I think.
We'll see indeed. Johnny, you've been absolutely brilliant. One final question then. Maybe not next season, but in the future then. In terms of a football ground that you've wanted to do, but you've not been able to do it yet, what ground is that?
Hastings United. I keep losing track. I know they're looking at demolishing it, Pilot Field, and moving out, but they've not quite done it yet. And I missed the chance to go to Workington's ground, which I'm annoyed about. But it was. I looked at going for their final game there, and it would have taken about 6 weeks on a train, so I never bothered. But Hastings is a bit closer to home. I want to try and get to Hastings. There are not many non-league grounds like that left. I think that the sort of ramshackle, completely. I mean, if I'd been to Hastings in that cup run, the obvious answer to the most unique ground would have been Hastings by a mile. Like I want to go there. I know people that live sort of down that way as well. I've not got an excuse. I don't tend to miss Sutton games, so I just need there to be a Saturday free where we get knocked out the cup in the first round, which is more often than you might think, or a Tuesday night. I could probably get to Hastings on a Tuesday night, but yeah, Hastings United, I'm coming for you. Hopefully this season, so long as they've not moved out by then. I need to check, but yeah, I'd love to go there. It's one of the few remaining classic non-league grounds left, I think.
Definitely. Johnny, you've been brilliant. Thanks for coming on, mate.
Cheers for having me, Joe. Much appreciated.
Yeah, wasn't that good, wasn't it? Yeah, Johnnie Lowery, great to have him on. And like I say, it was a brilliant insight into his book, his life, and of course his love for Sutton United. Of course, they're currently playing the National League as well. And like I say, brilliant guy, brilliant guest. And like I say, hopefully I'll bump into him at some point. You never know, next season. But yes, if you enjoy your podcast, during the episodes, drop a like, subscribe to the channel. Big thanks to MKS Ground Care, who are sponsored the channel, of course, throughout the season, and they've been a fantastic support. So thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next episode.